everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Chubby Gourmet. I've been asked by several people about making pizza. I have a recipe I'd like to share with everyone, making from scratch. I'll start simple and leave it there, but I'll also show other things you can add to add other dimensions of flavor, like to the dough, to the sauce, and all that stuff, and some cooking techniques. So hopefully this will be very informative for everyone, and I hope you enjoy. If you like what you see, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. First thing I want to do, just to get it out of the way, is prepare the toppings. Now, as you all know, whatever you like and you could dream of, you could put as a topping on the pizza. I'm keeping it simple today. I'm adding some mushroom and some Italian sausage. So before I even add olive oil, I'm going to slice this guy, and I'm just going to squeeze this out of the casing into the pan. First, we need some olive oil. No more than a couple tablespoons. You got plenty of fat in the sausage, which is going to be needed because mushrooms are like little sponges. They're going to absorb a lot. Pizza we're preparing today is only going to be about 12 inches in diameter. You'll start to notice the mushrooms getting kind of soft. They're going to let out a little water of their own. I'm using fresh baby bellas, baby portobellos. Doesn't have to be. There's a million varieties of mushrooms out there. I like baby bellas. Portobellos in general are awesome. So that's the guy I'm using. Again, suit your taste. You may not even want mushrooms on your pie at all. So while that's still sauteing, I'm going to add the sausage now. That's the casing. I slit the casing, and I'm simply squeezing the sausage out of the casing. And the crumbles are what's going to go on the pie. You want to break that up and crumble it nicely. Meanwhile, the mushrooms are starting to soften up a little bit. Sausage is starting to brown. When we're getting ready to put the ingredients together to bake the pie, we're going to shred some fresh mozzarella and add that on top of the topping. Want to make sure that that sausage is cooked. Not overcooked, just that it's thoroughly browned. It's going to get finished off as the topping of pie when we bake it in the oven. So we put just the right amount of olive oil, because that sausage is rendering oil like crazy right now. But that's a good thing. And I am not going to be seasoning this because the sausage and mozzarella that we add have plenty of salt already. Of course, what you do with your pie is your business. If you want more salt, by all means, don't hesitate to season more. Okay, we prepared our toppings. What we're going to do now is we're going to make the sauce first. Then we're going to make the dough. The reason we're making the sauce first is because that's got to simmer for like over a half hour, say 40, 45 minutes. So let's make it. It's a pizza tomato sauce specifically. So this is my take on a pizza tomato sauce. So the first thing I want to do, and by the way, I should mention I am using a Dutch oven. That's not necessary. Any pot should do. I just like cooking in cast iron, my preference, but it's not a requirement. So anyway, I've heated this guy up on medium high. I'm going to add a couple tablespoons of olive oil, and I chopped up about 3.5 cloves of garlic, and I'm going to saute that garlic. I'll lower the heat a little bit. I don't want to burn the garlic, so I want to soften them up a little. Now what I've done, I've chopped up a few tablespoons of fresh oregano. I chose fresh oregano over dried because it's more oregano-y. Just made up a word for today. So I'm going to add that next. And because I'm in cast iron, I've got to take the heat down a little bit more. And to that I'm going to add, not for spice, but for flavor, some ground fresh crushed red pepper. We're not trying to make it spicy or hot. You won't even notice it, but the flavor that it adds is noticeable. Now the tomatoes, and I'd like to talk a little bit about the tomatoes we're using. These are San Marzano tomatoes from Italy. The reason I use San Marzano for almost every tomato sauce that I make is that it's lower in acid, and also the San Marzano tomatoes are very tomato-y. Yes, today's the day that I turn many nouns into adjectives.
Can we just carry on?
Do you realize you just ended that proposition with a preposition? I'm snorting cooked oregano. I'm lowering the heat I don't want this boiling, I just want it to be simmered. Oops.
Sorry.
Bless you.
The spices.
My cooking does that to people. And now we're gonna add some fresh ground pepper. I'm gonna season with a little salt. We don't want to overdo the salt because we've got sausage that's salty and the cheese which is salty. It smells like pizza already. So we'll bring that to a simmer, let it go a half hour to 45 minutes. And one last thing, I wanted to talk more about tomatoes. San Marzano are very low in acid. There's other varieties of tomatoes that are also low, like yellow tomatoes. Some of them are extremely low, almost nil acid. Some are higher in acid than San Marzano. I'm gonna add a tiny pinch of baking soda just to eliminate any excess acid, because I really don't prefer that in my pizza sauce. While our sauce is cooking and simmering away nicely, smelling incredible, next we're going to start the dough. Now I'm going to start out simple. Simple 2-ingredient pizza dough. Self-rising flour, 1.5 cups, and 1 cup of plain Greek yogurt. There's nothing magical or special about this. You can find it on the internet. It's not my creation. But we're going to add a couple of things. You can keep it very simple, just 2 ingredients, or you can add a couple of other ingredients that I will if you want to make it a little more sexy and exciting. Oh, by the way, you don't need to use a mixer with a dough hook. I'm using the dough hook just because it's really cool how effective it is at getting the job done with minimal work. You don't need such things. You can always just stir it yourself in a bowl and knead it out by hand. You're going to be kneading anyway by hand, but this just initially just makes things a little bit easier. So I'm going to put this, the Greek yogurt first. Got the Greek yogurt added, plain Greek yogurt. I'm adding 1.5 cups. So if you're making a 12-inch pie, 1.5 cups of self-rising flour. That's important. We're not playing around with yeast or doing it the hard way, which is, just as good, but we're using self-rising flour. It's quick and to the point. So we got the Greek yogurt, and now we're going to start adding 1.5 cups. I'm going to add a little bit and get this baby going. Now keep in mind, you will probably be adding a little more flour later on if it's getting too moist, because we are adding a couple more ingredients. And it takes it a little while to get the flour from around the sides and incorporate it with the yogurt. All right, so we're still cranking here. I'm going to increase the speed a little bit because I want it a little quicker to get the sides incorporated. And as you can see, it's starting to actually form a ball.
Very sexy. Very sexy.
Now, to be a little different, because I like being different, I'm going to add, in my case, some brown rice syrup. Now normally, I wouldn't say normally, but you see a lot of chefs add barley malt syrup. It's along the same lines. It adds a sweetness, a little sweetness, not overbearing sweetness. But I think the flavor, specifically the brown rice syrup, you get your little bit of sweetness added to the dough, and it just seems to blend much easier. Again, this is optional. If you can't get barley malt syrup or brown rice syrup, don't use any. It's not crucial. I'm only going to put like a half a teaspoon at that. I know I'm in the middle of cooking right now, but I'm just in the mood to grab a really nice hiney. And so I will. Now again, this isn't a requirement in your pizza dough. I like to put a splash of beer in the dough. I mean, the combination of the ingredients, in my humble opinion, makes a fabulous dough. And put a little bit of that in there. And don't worry if you need to add a little more flour to it, that's okay. So now I'm going to add the rest of my flour, and let's give it some time, let it build our dough ball. Then we're going to take that dough ball out, and we're going to knead it into the shape of the pie we're going to make. Again, these ingredient combinations and amounts are for a 12-inch pie. Just scale them accordingly if you want a bigger pie. For example, if you want to go from a 12-inch like we're making to a 16-inch, now you're 2 cups of Greek yogurt and 3 cups of the flour. The beer is by taste. As I mentioned before, you are going to be adding more flour, especially after you add the beer, because your dough is going to get liquidy between the yogurt and the beer. So don't feel shy, have extra self-rising flour on hand. Don't be hesitant to be throwing it in, not dump another cup in, but dump in little by little as you need it. Because flour is your friend when you're making dough. Okay, so we don't want to over knead it. There's no need to do that. Please note, I've put flour on my rolling pin and on my pizza peel. That's what this thing is called, that they use at the pizzerias to put the pie in and out of the oven. It's called a pizza peel. I used to cook bananas on mine, in fact. Well, I thought the idea had a peel. Anyway, we're gonna let that sit for a few moments. I don't wanna start kneading it right away. And we're gonna make a nice big 12-inch pie, nice thickness. It's not a thin crust for the amount of dough that I made. And then we'll put our sauce, which is done simmering. We'll add our toppings. I've got some fresh mozzarella that I sliced up into slices. And then we'll talk about what's going on in the oven. Okay, our pizza's not exactly round. It's more shaped like a single-cell organism. Now, we're going to add the sauce. That's not a beautiful thing. I don't know what is. Now we got some of our sausage and mushroom, and we're going to throw some of our fresh mozz on there. Okay, our pizza's assembled. The last part is we're gonna cook it. Now I'm gonna point this out. I'm using what's called a pizza steel. Some of you may be aware of something called a pizza stone. It's basically a heavy stone that conducts heat. You put it in the oven, preheat that sucker at a high temperature, 450 to 500, because you're cooking in a residential kitchen. You're not cooking most likely in a restaurant or pizzeria. Those stoves get up to like 800 degrees. Different story. So we're using a steel. Steel has a higher convection rate of heat than stone. So I'm going to use the steel. We're going to transfer this to the steel. It's only going to need about 10 minutes to cook. I preheated to 475 and it's been heating the steel for an hour. So it's like a radiator sitting in there.
Boom!
You can see the char. I didn't leave it in long enough because I was afraid to burn it, but the char is what you desire. Otherwise you've just got dough with tomato sauce and toppings and cheese on top of it. The bottom has a char. It could have gotten a little more char, but it's certainly good as it is. And the texture of the dough, beautiful. And I can taste the Heineken, most important thing. Well, I hope you enjoyed our video of making from scratch homemade pizza. Again, you don't have to get as carried away with the tools or the ingredients or quantity of ingredients like I did, but the dough is just like, perfect. And then the way it pulls all the other ingredients together, it doesn't look pretty, but it tastes very good. So that's a homemade from scratch pizza. Hope you enjoy it. If you like it, please subscribe, share, and like. I welcome all your comments. Thank you for watching. Hasta lasagna.